Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of Road to the Blue Map. It is the third round of the playoffs this week, and we're getting down to it, Coach. Starting to find out which guys are going to be getting to the semifinals and having a chance to go play for a blue map in Tuscaloosa later on this year.
Yeah, and we're at the point now where, pretty much every team, there's no, you're not going to sneak up on anybody at this point. You know what I mean? Everybody is a quality team. Most of these teams are one-loss or zero-loss teams that are left in it and have been playing at a high level all season. And and it shows. When we start looking at the numbers and stuff, we'll talk about them game by game here in a minute. But it's the time of the year where the best are left. The cream has risen to the top.
No doubt about it. And obviously, you can kind of see watching us. We're in a new place, a new location. We're at River Rocks Landing, which is right here in Gadsden, Alabama. So we've been up in Gunnersville for most of the year. This is another place that is part of the group that is sponsoring with us here with Average Joe's this year. River Rocks Landing in Gadsden. You know where it's at. It's right over by where Buffalo Wild Wings and the bridge and all that stuff is, right as you can get into downtown over here in Gadsden. Make sure to come and check them out. It's going to be a great scenery up here soon with all the Christmas lights and everything being set up over the next month. So you'll want to make sure you come over and check this out. And look, if you got an RV, things of that nature, this is the place to come for the weekend. Come park your RV if you're coming from out of town and come hang out and enjoy a great place. And, we appreciate them hosting us here tonight and allowing us to be here and bring you Road to the Blue Map as we break down all 26 of the playoff games. Only 26 games, Coach. Next week, with no 7A, we'll only have 12, and then there'll only be 7 games left after that there for Super 7. So it starts dwindling down, and we're going to start. Here's the order we're going to go in for all those that are tuning in right now. If you want to know when we're going to start talking about stuff, we're going to go 3A first. We're going to take a break. Then we're going to talk about 2A. We'll take a break. Then we'll talk about 1A, take a break. And then we're going to come back and talk about 4A, 5A, 6A, and 7A to end things off. So we're going to start here with 3A, 2A, 1A, and then we'll go 4A, 5A, 6A, 7A to end things off. So, Coach, getting started here in 3A. Mobile Christian at Trinity. Great matchup. Two very good private schools there in 3A. And, Trinity, 11-1 on the season. Only loss on the year is to the defending champs, St. James.
Yep.
But they're going to have their work cut out for them as they take on Mobile Christian.
Well, and that's like when we look at talking about experience versus explosiveness, stuff like that. You talk about experience at the highest level. Ronnie Cottrell at Mobile Christian was the associate head coach at the University of Alabama under Mike Dubose. And he's been coaching high school ball. He did before he was a college coach and then after. And his let's see, right now they're scoring an average of 42.6 points a game and only giving up 6.1 points per game. That's nuts. The scoring differential is huge there. And Trinity's no slouch. They're 38.1 points per game to allowing 16 points per game. I think Mobile Christian's favored in this one by a couple of touchdowns, which is understandable on paper. But once again, you never know until you get out there and you play the football game.
Yeah. As you said, according to FHS, Mobile Christian a 14-point favorite in this game. Look, being at home has to help Trinity a little bit. It's a long trip to come up from Mobile to Montgomery to play this game. But you look at the best team Trinity's played all year is St. James. They lost the game 47-8. So you got to hope if you're Trinity, you've maybe learned some things from that game.
Yeah, and they had one common opponent, which was Flomaton, which is Mobile Christian beat them 42-0, and Trinity beat them 35-0. Thing is, when you get to those type situations, you never know whether or not one coach may have pulled back a little bit, put the younger kids in earlier or something like that. So you can't necessarily use that as a gauge to judge off of, but it is something they did have one common opponent there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So it should be a really fun one there. And you got to give Trinity a lot of credit. Coach Brian Seymour, made the move from Demopolis to come down there and take over for Ranger Shook, who is at Pike Road, and we'll talk about him and his team later on today. And, obviously Coach Shook left Trinity in very good shape when you see how they've done this year. But Coach Seymour, the experience at Andalusia in the past and then up there at Demopolis, he's brought that over here to Trinity and just kind of continue what Coach Shook did.
Yep.
Yeah, so should be a lot of fun. Look, Trinity was just a couple years ago, they were in the third round of the playoffs taking on Montgomery Academy, who ended up going on and playing for a state championship that year against Piedmont. So obviously they want some revenge, and it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. But they're going to have their work cut out for them for sure. Another team that's going to have their work cut out for them, Coach, Thomasville. They're going to be hosting St. James. According to AHSAA, it's a pick'em game. I saw Thomasville earlier in the playoffs. I did them in Dadeville. Thomasville's a good team. The thing that stood out to me watching, they don't throw the ball very well. Yeah. And as well as anybody, when you get to this time of year, you've got to be able to put the ball in the air. You got to be able to move it multiple ways. That's the one thing that I fear a little bit for them going into this game with St. James, who is very willing to spread you out and chunk it all over the yard.
Well, you know, when you look at it on paper, St. James has given up an average of 24 points a game. But you look at also who they lost to. They lost to Hanley and Charles Henderson, pretty good football teams.
Yeah, and both in higher classifications.
Exactly. That's going to skew your numbers a little bit there. But, and once again, Thomasville's only loss is to Mobile Christian. So, I mean, and of course, you know, at St. James, you got a first-year coach there, but he's picking up from a true legend. Coach Perry had been there for a long time and had been, you know, had also been a coordinator on state championship teams with Spence McCracken. I mean, you know, really just a legendary name in high school. Well, even he was at Auburn too, just in the state of Alabama. You know what I mean? And so being able to learn under a guy like that and come in and pick up where he left off, kind of what we were talking about at Trinity, you know, same thing. The cupboard's not bare. And you got a good situation you're coming into. So, yeah, I mean, like, you know, AHS, FHS says it's an even to pick them. Once again, I was busy during the season, so I hadn't seen a lot of these teams play. But looking at the numbers, you know, it looks like that's probably close to right, you know, based on what I know, what I can see looking at paper. You know.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, Thomasville, here's the thing about them. They've been there and they've done it multiple times. I mean, that's a program that they kind of expect to get to this point every year. That has to help them for St. James. While they won it last year, all this is still new to them. It's not like St. James has a history of being a great football program, so kind of dealing with the target on your back and all that, having to go on the road. I'm going to be very interested to see how all that shapes out. But you look at 3A South, I mean, it's two regions that are dominating right here. You had Trinity and St. James in the same region, Thomasville, Mobile Christian in the same region, and those are the two that we have trying to decide who's going to win the South.
Yep.
Looking at the North now, this is what a lot of people have been waiting for us to talk about here, Coach. Geraldine at Lauderdale County. I was actually kind of surprised by this. Geraldine, according to AHS FHS, is a 3-point favorite in this game, traveling to Lauderdale County. You look at the year for Lauderdale County, they've beaten some pretty good teams, including Tanner, who I know is in 2A, but a very good win there to start the year at 27-21. But then the one that really stands out, that last game of the year against Brooks, a 4A team who is in the third round of the playoffs. They beat them 33-3, and after that game, Brooks has gone on to score 126 points over the last two games.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I understand. I mean, I know they use computers and all kinds of stuff, but yeah, to me, it doesn't seem like that Geraldine should be the favorite.
And it's no disrespect.
No,
Geraldine,
not at all.
It's Lauderdale County has been that good this season.
And their numbers actually bear that out. I mean, you look at, once again, they're averaging 39 points a game to Geraldine's 37.8. They're giving up 11.9 to Geraldine giving up 12.8. I guess it depends on, you know, when you look at the opponents that they've played, that type thing. But that's, you know, I'm having a hard time understanding how that comes about also.
Plus, they're the ones that are having to make the trip all the way across the state to get to Lauderdale.
Of course, there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me who look at a lot of this stuff, and so maybe they know something that I don't know. There's a lot of people who know stuff I don't know. But, you know, but you look at what they've done at Geraldine. You know, I was looking at, Coach Davis there? Been there 3 years, went 7-4, 9-4, now 11-1, and just building that program. I mean, just, you know, getting them stronger and where they're competitive in every game. I mean, scoring a high number of points, you know. So you can tell that they're building that program up. And so, you know, I can see how it would be about even, I would think, but I don't know, though. I mean, you know, like I said, there may be somebody who knows something that I don't know. I would think that Lauderdale County would be favored. Yeah. But like I said, I'm not all that smart. So.
Yeah, especially being at home. I don't know if they use the same thing that Kano in college or pros. If you're the home team, you get 3 points.
Yes.
You know, so if they're getting the 3 points, that means if Geraldine's at home, FHS would be favoring them by 9 in this game.
And what people don't understand is that when you have to travel with high school kids that far, that's tough. I mean, it really is, because it's hard to keep them focused on the bus for 2 or 3 hours. And then you probably have to stop and eat somewhere on the way, that kind of thing. And it almost, you know, to try and keep that from becoming like a circus type atmosphere. Because don't get me wrong, you know, you can try and get kids focused and everything else, but it's tough to keep them focused traveling that long. And, you know, I've been in situations where that's, you know, not been a problem, and then, you know, different teams know that it becomes a problem. Yeah. Because the teams, like I said, it's hard to keep focused, and that they're have all that free time. You know, it's not like you keep them locked in the field house where they're got the lights out and they're sleeping and everything else. No, you can't really do that on a school bus, or even if you have a charter bus. I don't know how anybody affords a charter bus anymore. But but whatever type of transportation you're taking, it is tough to keep a team focused traveling that far.
You got to see Geraldine Fife's game on film this year, right? So what kind of stood out to you about this Geraldine team, and maybe some things that you think that they're going to be able to use against this Lauderdale County team?
Well, if I remember correctly, once again, that's been way back during the season. If I remember correctly, they ran the ball well, but they also were able to hit some passes and catch Of course, if I'm correct, also Fife was missing a pretty key part of their team there. I think the Anderson boy did not play in that game. And we'll talk about him, of course, when we talk about 2A. Really, I feel like they were able to shut down Fife's run game better than anybody else has been able to. But once again, that is taking into account that their best run threat was not playing there. And once again, I don't know enough about Lauderdale County to know what they do to be able to, because I've not seen film on them. So I don't know I don't know if they're spread, if they're wing T, if they may run triple option. I don't know what they do. But whatever it is, they're gonna have to execute pretty well at a high level because Geraldine's only giving up less than 2 touchdowns a game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that should be a really fun one there. And looking forward to seeing how that one goes. The thing that sticks out to me the most, Coach, is that 33-3 score of Brooks there at the end of the year for Lauderdale County. I mean, that's a really good offense they held to 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, a high-quality opponent at a higher classification level. That's impressive.
Last game here in 3A, Sylvania. They'll be traveling to Madison Academy. And, Coach, it's been a great year for Sylvania. They're definitely going to have their work cut out for them going to this Madison Academy team who just looks to be a complete team. They've been dominant this year. Westminster Christian, we'll talk about them in the 4A playoffs as well, and they beat them 47-7 the last week of the regular season heading into the postseason. That kind of tells you where this team's at.
Well, and when I'm from Hopes Bluff, I live in Hopes Bluff. I graduated from Hopes Bluff, and I talked to a lot of people in the community there after Hopes Bluff got put out in the first round by Madison Academy, and a lot of them were like, "I'm just glad we scored on them." I mean, that's kind of the way because you're facing a team of that caliber. And Coach Godsey, once again, another coaching legend in the state of Alabama, was that Harts was so successful there for so many years. I know that when I was coaching with Coach Wagner at Hazel Green, we played them every year we were there, and I mean, it was tough. It's tough, especially tough to go play at Hartsville. But anyway, when you have a coach like that who's been there, you talk about experience, and I mean, Coach Godsey is, like I said, it's like coaching royalty in the state, and he's got, I mean, let's see, his career record's 231-78. I mean, that's pretty dang impressive right there, And of course, once again, at Sylvania though, you got Coach Van, who's been there 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
Once again, like I was talking about with Geraldine, 8-3, 10-4, now 10-2. That program's building, continues to progress and get better. And once again, just playing at a high caliber right now.
And they got past this game last year. You have to feel like that's going to help them just a little. They know what it takes to win in this game.
You have that confidence from having been there before.
Yeah, you look at it for Sylvania, 2 losses this year, come 2 Pisgah and 2 Fife, and 2 different games. They allowed a ton of points there against Pisgah, and then they hold Fife for 21, but only were able to score 10 against them.
Allowing a ton of points to Pisgah is, I mean, that happens.
It's almost a given now. Yeah,
that happens. And once again, I've told this story, it seems like every time I'm on. But a couple of years ago, when we had a pretty good football team, I think we set the record for both schools in scoring. We managed to win that one. And that was when the kids who are playing at Pisgah right now were young. Now they're juniors and seniors. Well, some of them, they've also got some young kids who are really good. But I mean, they're going to score points. So I wouldn't necessarily, once again, when we start looking at these numbers on paper, you have to take into account that there's 1 or 2 games can skew that average. I'm not a mathematician or anything. In fact, I barely pass math in some instances, but I do know that one outlier can skew an average.
Yeah.
That kind of happens a lot of times when you're looking at averages and that kind of thing. When you're looking at analyzing teams and stuff, and especially in a situation kind of where y'all have a better opportunity to see during the season because, like I said, I'm busy. But when I'm just looking at paper, a lot of times I hadn't seen a lot of them on film, or been able to be there in person to see them. And so, I have to try and take that into account. That if there's one game that's an outlier, or maybe even 2 games, depending on who they played, that skews your numbers a good bit.
Yeah. So that's going to wrap things up there for 3A. As we talked about, Mobile Christian Trinity, St. James at Thomasville, Geraldine at Lauderdale County, Sylvania at Madison Academy. Should be 3 very fun matchups there. And really looking forward to seeing how all that shapes itself out. So like I said, now we broke down 3A. We're going to take a quick break here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back very shortly. And we'll have Bo come on, and Bo will be with Coach Heath. They're going to break down 2A and talk about that 2A classification. I know a lot of you guys watching ready to hear them talk about that. Stay tuned for more right here with Average Joe Sports Talk.
All right, everybody, welcome in. And let me just say this, it's a pleasure to sit by a true legend. And Coach Alan Heath from Sand Rock. Coach, good to see you again as always, buddy.
I appreciate y'all having me. Like I said, it's like I'm auditioning, so when I get fired, I'll have a job. Maybe you can hire me. If we don't have a better season next year than I had this year, it may be the truth, so we'll see.
The coach, all I got to say about that is I don't know what they want X's and O's from a guy, because you do know that 100%, and you do a great job with those kids. Sometimes it just don't pan out your way, but anytime you need a job, you're always welcome to come on here at Average Joe's. But your charisma is the reason you're sitting here with us, because you're one of the best I've ever seen at that, Coach.
Well, I appreciate that. You're the only person who's ever taught that, so I appreciate that. It makes me feel good.
The beautiful part about us is, man, we get to meet a lot of guys, but I have to say you're top of the list, and one of the guys I really like outside of the work. I call it work, but it ain't really work, getting to hang out with the coaches and the kids and whatever. But at this time, I'm going to announce something right here that's really cool. It happened at River Rocks Landing here in Gadsden. It's called Lights on the Landing. And if anybody's ever been to Gadsden, they've been to the Gadsden Mall. It's the lights underneath the 759 bridge there. That is, it's called Lights on the Landing. So Thanksgiving night kicks off the season for these Lights on the Landing. It's cash only. So if you show up, bring cash. It's just a cash only deal. It's November 24th through December 31st, and the hours on that is Sunday through Thursday, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. On Friday and Saturday, it's 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Children under 5 in the car are absolutely free, and you don't have to get out and walk, but you can drive straight through this, or you can get out and walk. That's up to you, but they prefer people to drive through because there's so many lights and it's such a big area that you would probably want to drive through and just take your time as you do so. At this time, Coach, we're going to break down 2A, and there's a lot of people out there really interested in this 2A breakdown, and there's a lot of really good football here in our area, people that was in your region, but also a lot of really good football with people in the south part of the state as well. There's about 4 or 5 teams out there. When this Super 7 happens, if they won that state championship, I would not be shocked.
I agree, and that's what's nuts, is usually you have somebody who is just so head and shoulders above everybody else that, that everyone is the underdog to them. It is wide open in 2A, I think. I think that there are, like you said, 4 or 5 teams, maybe 6 teams who could win it, and I would not be surprised at all. I mean, playing quality football at a level. Now, once again, when I say that, they're at a level that was above the rest of us in 2A. They really were. I mean, and it showed even within our own region that there's a couple of teams in our region, and there's a couple of teams in other regions. Like you look at the South, and like we talked about Comer and Reeltown. You have these teams that rose to the top of their region, but then within the state, that they're they look like they're pretty evenly matched. It's going to be some good matchups and some good games as we go forward.
And you see matchups like here's the scary part about it, Coach. Everybody always does the matchup thing. Well, so-and-so beat so-and-so by 10, but so-and-so only beat them by 7. Mm-hmm. That don't mean a hill of beans in reality football. No. Because it's how your team matches up against it.
Yeah, and it's more position by position. It's who do they have at corner versus who you have at receiver. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The linebacker versus the running back, that type of thing, or safety, depending on what you're playing. And those matchups right there, that's when we talk about the reason that I love football, because I was a horrible athlete. That's the reason I love football. Because there's a place, even for people like me who was not any good, to be able to play. If you work hard, there's a place on the football field, and all 11 guys have to execute at that high level in order to be successful. And when you get that, it's magical. I mean, it really is. It's a beautiful thing when all 11 guys are completely bought in. They're busting their tails, not just in the ball games. They're not under the lights guys. They're at practice and everything else. When they're busting their tails, practice is fun. And I'm a weirdo. I love practice and I hate games. I do, because I'm a control freak. I can control practice. I can stop practice and fix something. Now, during a ball game, I can't do that. They'd probably frown on that if I, blew a whistle and tried to stop it. So, but that's what's beautiful about football. You can't necessarily just live off. Well, once again, when we talk about Fife, we're going to talk about the Anderson boy, and he is really, really good. But he could be on a different team and not be near as good because they wouldn't be executing at the level all around him, the other 10 guys.
I agree with that.
Like they do at Fife. No, I'm not taking anything away from him. He is an unbelievable talent. But what I'm saying is even one unbelievable talent in football is not going to win you a championship. It's going to have to be a team effort all the way around.
I agree with that, 100%. All right, Coach, let's start in the South right here. I want to start with B.B. Comer and Clark County. This is a very interesting matchup. B.B. Comer coming into this thing was probably an odds-on favorite to win it all, considering what Fife graduated Although they're getting Anderson back, they lost their entire offensive line outside of Tucker Wilson. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. But let's talk about B.B. Comer for a second in Clark County. B.B. Comer, Adam Fawcett, is one of my favorite human beings outside of coaching on earth. He's a man of God. He stands on his word. Check my track record at this. I mean, the guy is the real deal.
100%.
On and off the court, or on and off the field, and that translates into leading these young men the right way. So it's no surprise that B.B. Comer's doing what they've been doing lately. Now, they got a running back named Kamari Harris who's carried it 94 times this year, Coach. He's about 6'2", weighs about 230. For 1,400 yards, he's averaging 15.1 yards per touch, and he's got 24 touchdowns. Now, he's going to be going up against Clark County, and if you know anything about Clark County, Stacy Luker's out. They got a new coach in town.
Coach Carter.
Coach Carter's in town. His name's Rob Carter, and they're averaging, which I'll let you get into that, what they're averaging, 26.3 points and only allowing 19.3. But here's the thing about Clark County. There's DNA in that area of the state. And that DNA translates into these big games. And let me tell you a little secret about that DNA. Just a few years ago when Fife couldn't find a game, they were looking for the game, and Clark County raised their hand. And I'm not talking about the Fife this year. I'm talking about when they had Dalton, when they had all these guys. And they said, we'll not only play you, we'll come up there and play you at your place.
Yeah.
And they come up there, and Coach Benefield took the game without watching film. And then Coach Benefield went in there and turned the film on. And he was like, what did I just get myself into? These dudes are monsters.
Yeah,
Now,
no.
Fife ultimately ended up winning that game, and the hardest hitting football game I've seen in a long time. But
I'll bet.
break this game down for me, Coach.
Well, like you said, of course, Comer, though, their numbers are unbelievable. Like we were talking about in 3A, though. There's going to be some things that skew that. And when I looked at Clark County, they're 7-5, but they lost to Strong, Thomasville, Leroy, Sweetwater, these teams that are playing at a super high level. And so that skews those numbers a little bit. And and when you look at their common opponents, all right, they both played Vincent and Washington County, all right? And really, they're not that far off. Now, Clark County's given up a few more points. That's the thing. You know, Comer's only averaging giving up 7.3 points a game. I mean, that's
crazy.
That's tough right there.
Nuts, actually.
And so, but you look at Vincent, they both played Vincent. Comer beat them 36-0. Clark County beat them 20-9. Washington County, Comer beat them 49-0. Clark County beat them 46-19. That's not that far off. You know what I'm saying? And once again, when you get in those games where it is a high scoring differential, you never know whether or not, you know, this coach decided to call off the dogs or whatever else, or put in the young kids, that kind of thing. So you can't necessarily go off that. But like you said, when it comes to Clark County, the history of them knowing how to win, you know, that's like, I was telling y'all during the break that I spent all day yesterday on a tractor, right? Well, I bought an old tractor. You know why I bought that tractor? I bought a 76 model.
You knew it worked.
Yeah, I bought a 76 model Massey Ferguson because I grew up on like an 80 model Massey Ferguson. So I can work on that tractor. I know that tractor. I had a hose blow on it yesterday while I was on it. I went and fixed it like that because I know how to do it. When you have that familiarity with something, you're comfortable with it, all right? And you can get more done that way when you're comfortable with it, when you expect to win. I know we talked about one time, I knew that we had turned the corner when I was coaching with Coach Wagner at Mumford, when we beat, I guess it was Bibb County in a jamboree at JSU. And came in and the kids were just putting their stuff in their bags. They weren't celebrating, they weren't doing anything. And I asked, well, we had C.J. Chapman was all-state receiver. I said, C.J., y'all not happy? He said, Coach, we're supposed to win. When they get to that level where they think we're supposed to win.
I like that.
Yeah, then you're like, okay, we turned the corner. I mean, you know, we got this program going where we need to. And so that's where, you know, you have these teams like Comer's at now. You know, Coach Fawcett's got them playing at that level. Yeah. And Clark, basically every team that we're going to talk about in 2A is playing at that level right now.
That's right.
And that's what it takes because, like I said last week, it's not so much what you do, whether you run the wing tee, all right, whether you run spread, whether you're running the wishbone, whether you're running the 4-3 or a 4-2-5 or a 3-4, whatever you're running. It's not what you're doing that matters as much as that the kids have bought into it and they're doing it at the highest level they're possibly capable of.
They're playing with their hair on fire.
Exactly. Once you get kids to believe like that, you got something special.
That's right. All right, next game we're going to break down. We're going to go ahead and break down the host South. This one's going to be Reeltown, who's a 14-point favorite in this game, versus Cottonwood. Coach Matt Johnson's on a redemption tour after that Fife game. It seems like that Fife game a few years ago kind of woke up what we're seeing right here from Reeltown. The way they went into that game, their approach to that game, everything. I've not seen anything on social media from Reeltown. They've been pretty silent. When they was playing Fife, there was a lot of chatter and talk. And then Fife went out and handled that game. I think it's 57-7, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think that needed to happen, and I think that's why they're in this position now, because now all I hear is silence, and they pretty much dominated their competition
Oh, yeah.
all throughout the year, minus the Highland home game, which they won by 7. We talked about common opponents. You know, B.B. Comer only beat them by 7 last week.
Exactly.
We flipped that thing over to Cottonwood. You know, Cottonwood all time has had some success against this team, Coach. They're 4-3 all time versus Reeltown. And in these playoffs, they beat Laverne 26-8. They beat Isabella last week 24-21. So they've won some big games too, but you got to think they're up against this Reeltown team.
Yeah, but also you look at their only loss in the season and was to Headland, who's still in the 5A playoffs. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, it's not like that they went out and lost to just any old team.
Slippery Rock.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So I mean, they're yeah, I mean, you have to think, yeah, Reeltown is favored according to what AHS, FHS says by 14 even. I don't know that the spread ought to be that big. Because, once again, when you look at their numbers and stuff and who they've played, it's not that far off. It's not, it's not that much different. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that like we talked about the familiarity, Reeltown 3.7 points a game, only giving up 10, versus Cottonwood 37.9 points per game, only giving up 17. But, I mean, once again, that's not that far off. But it is about a touchdown differential in either direction. But, you have to look at the opponents that they've played and everything. And they both played Luverne, they both played Wicksburg. But it wasn't, once again, against Luverne, Reeltown beat them 40-13, Cottonwood 26-8. In Wicksburg, Reeltown beat them 34-14. They beat Cottonwood beat them 28-20. So, I mean, there is a little bit of differential there, but you never know. All right? And they're playing at Cottonwood.